Hey everybody, welcome back to See What God Did There, episode 6. This episode is called God's Blessings in All Their Graphic Detail. Yesterday we read Parshas Bahar Bechukaisai, and Bechukaisai is known for listing the blessings that will come upon the Jewish people for following God's commandments, for toiling in His Torah, and especially for following the mitzvah of Shemitah, of the agricultural sabbatical laws. And also, the Parsha lists what's called the curses or the rebuke of what will happen when we don't follow God's ways, don't study His Torah in depth, and don't fulfill the mitzvah of Shemitah. There's a similar content in a few months from now in Parshas Kisavai, where again, it lists blessings and curses upon the Jewish people for following God's ways or not following God's ways. At the end of that Parsha, it says that this is a pact that's being made between God and the Jewish people, in addition to the pact that was made in Sinai, which is what we read yesterday in Bechukaisai. Now, there's a famous story of the founder of Chabad, the Baal HaTanya, the Alter Rebbe, that he was the one who used to read the Parsha in shul every week, and one week for Parshas Kisava, he was away, and his 13-year-old son, Dov Ber, who was his eventual successor, the Mittler Rebbe, he was hearing the Parsha being read by somebody else, and when it came to the curses, Dov Ber fainted. And the Chassidim revived him. They asked him what happened. He says, well, I was listening to the Parsha, and the Balkari started reading curses, and it shocked me. I fainted. And they said, well, you've heard the Parsha before. Why is this year different? Dov Ber said, when Father reads, I don't hear curses. Now, there's a concept in Torah that everything we experience in life and everything in Torah is only blessing. But for whatever reason, whether it's maybe because of on our end, that we're not able to receive it in its pristine form, but everything we experience, even when it's painful, is really a hidden blessing. But how can we look at these curses that are in Parshas Bechukaisai and coming up in Parshas Kisavai? How can we look at them as blessings? So first of all, in Parshas Bechukaisai, when the curses are listed, it starts off by saying that if you don't follow my ways, God says, I will send you a certain degree of suffering. And if you don't learn from that to better your ways, then there'll be more suffering and more intense suffering. And if you don't learn from your ways then there'll be more intense suffering. And eventually you'll be exiled among the nations. And there you will experience the most intense suffering, and it'll get worse and worse and worse and worse. But how does God end off? What is the whole point that God is leading up to? Not to a curse, but to a blessing. And the greatest blessing is at the end when God says that no matter how far you are flung across the globe, and no matter how far away you run from me, and no matter how much you despise me and reject me, God says, I will never despise you, I will never reject you, I will never break my covenant with you, and I will bring you back to be a God for you. So when it's looked in the totality of what's being said here, yes, there are curses along the way, but the curses are there, in a sense, to really lead up to the final blessing, which is that no matter how far you stray, I, God, will never stray from you. I will always love you, and I will always bring you back to me. And in that sense, the entire Parsha is really just blessing. It's not blessings and curses. It's all blessing. Now, how can we look at that in an even deeper way? Each of the curses themselves, as we said before, it starts off at a certain degree of suffering, and then it gets worse and worse and worse and more intense and more graphic and more gory until the Torah starts listing curses that are the types of things that we can't even speak in front of children. But even there, we could potentially see a blessing in each and every single verse, in each and every single quote-unquote curse. Because if God had just told the Jewish people that if you stray from me, you're going to suffer, and eventually I may send you into exile, and there you're going to suffer too. But don't worry, I'm never going to forget you, I'm never going to reject you, I'll bring you back. So when we went out into exile, as we did historically, and we suffered, we didn't just suffer, we actually suffered in ways that were so inhumane and so beyond our wildest imaginations and so beyond belief. It's possible we would have said to ourselves, you know what, God told us that if we strayed, we would suffer and He would never reject us and He would bring us back. But we didn't expect to suffer this much. Maybe if we're suffering this much, maybe God is actually telling us, you know what, I actually despised you. I actually rejected you. I've broken my covenant with you. So in order for God to assure us that no matter how intense the suffering gets, He still has not rejected us or despised us or broken His covenant, God therefore lists in all the graphic, gory detail in an intensifying manner every single type of suffering we could possibly ever experience. Why? So that we should know and be confident and trust Him that even then, He still has not despised us, and He still has not rejected us, He still has not forgotten us, He still has not broken His covenant with us, and He will still bring us back to be a God for us. And in that sense, we can actually read not just the entire Parsha as a whole as a blessing, but actually every single curse itself as a deeper and deeper blessing. That even when we experience something which seems so much like a rejection, Even there, God is saying, even there I have not rejected you. I still remember you, I love you, and I will still bring you back and be a God for you.